He's out. Hello, everybody. All right, so today we're going to be doing, this is prep to get paid. Bob's going to be joining me as far as the commission play aspect of things to help you get started. We'll try and keep a running tab on questions, but please, raise your hand or participate. This is designed to be a workshop more than anything else. So we really want to be able to have your input so that we can help you with your specific needs too. All right. Let's say the first thing I just kind of want to go over what is, and this is, I guess, would be better titled Command 1 or Compliance 101 rather than Prep to Get Paid. I mean, that's part of it too, but we're really going to be focusing on Command and DocuSign and how they interact together. So, because I know we've got some people that are having problems with it, and so I just want to kind of explain it and overview and show how you set up docs and some of the wonderful features that are in DocuSign. And trust me, I was a hard and fast, diehard non-DocuSign person until I had to be a DocuSign person. And now it's actually come around and it's a lot easier to manipulate. Once you know what you can do in there, it is actually a little bit easier even than .loop to use. So hopefully that will be helpful for you. And Bob, obviously feel free to jump in at any point to correct me and keep me on track, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, so the first thing to understand is that Command and DocuSign are two different animals. Hi, Jason. Yay, nice to see you from here, Fort Lauderdale. Okay, we've got Command and we have DocuSign. They are separate entities, but they are joined. They're connected. They're connected. So to try to explain it, Command is what we use for compliance and submitting things to the office. DocuSign is just the vehicle to generate documents. All right, so just by putting something in DocuSign, it doesn't automatically go into Command yet. They're talking about working on that, but right now they are still individual entities. So you have to be able to manipulate and go back and forth between the two. And so that's the goal here, is to help you hopefully understand what that process looks like and why it's set up the way it is. All right, so without further ado, the first part is that and I'm going to screen share on mine. Let me get back to my screen. Give me half a second here. Go away. Go away. First and most important thing to understand is that you always need to operate Command from your incognito tab. And it was explained to me this way, where it's like, well, why can't I just do it regular? Okay, the way it was explained is that because Command is still very much in process and they are updating continuously, incognito does not store cookies, so that you will always have the most current version. If you try and go back to a previous version, if you were just using your regular Chrome browser or whatever standard browser, it wouldn't catch the new updates and you'd be working with a faulty system and things wouldn't work the way they're supposed to. So that's just the reason why. So always make sure that you open up a new incognito tab when you're working in Command, all right? I'm going to show you how to get, let me just back up here one second. New incognito. If you have it bookmarked as incognito, yeah, it's not going to work. You really need to open up a new thing and log in every time, Jason. That's going to be the key there. All right, so let me just double check here what I've got up. All right, and you can always tell you're in Command because it has black tabs on it. So I'm going to show you, let me share my screen now. So many steps. I know, it's very tedious. Okay, so let me see. This is not what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for. All right, so does everybody see that screen there? We having any problems with that? Bob, can you see it? The Command screen?
Yep, we're good to go.
Okay, all right, so you'll always tell that this has, because it has the black border on it, that's how you know you're in Command, or that you know you're in an incognito, because you're hiding, you're on the dark web. Okay, so you have, the first step to understand is that you have your contacts, and this is the easiest way to get into DocuSign. Now, I know a couple agents out there have not had, when they got initially set up, for whatever reason, they did not link up their DocuSign through Command. And it is absolutely key to do that to make sure they talk to each other. All right. Point here is that you can absolutely go into DocuSign and generate your documents all day long, and that's fine for the most part. You may not have access to some of our office specific documents. So you want to check and make sure that you can get to DocuSign from this page. And I'm not going to try and explain how to link those up. I'm just going to leave it to you to reach out to your agent services person to coordinate that for you and make sure that you actually are hooked up. So I've got a contact in here, and really, honest to goodness, the only thing I have in here is his first name and a spouse name. And obviously they are fake because they're test files. I have a spouse in here, Mary, John and Mary test file. All right. So you want to always start your files for DocuSign through command. So we got these people, they are buyers, and I'm going to go over here to opportunities, and I'm going to create an opportunity. All right, everybody with me, right? Create an opportunity. So they are going to be, check you here, we're going to be buyers. This is the client, we've got that, I'm the owner. And we're going to say their budget is 300,000. The commission rate that I'm hoping for is going to be 3%. And we've made an appointment and we are active. And we are in negotiations. We found a property, okay? Some of this doesn't matter. Only the things that have the asterisk are the required fields. So if that helps you, so you don't have to wind up adding too much information, all right? So now we're going to create it. What's that?
Sorry. It's important to know that stuff's not set in stone. I get a lot of questions from agents, oh, I put 3% in here, I need to change it. None of that stuff is set in stone. Right. KWRI does use that information, and some of the information we'll see in the offers section down the road to actually kind of educate the artificial intelligence on the back end, because we've got some big plans for that to do some pretty amazing things, frankly, to assist you in writing contracts and stuff in the future. So we do want that to be accurate, but it's not the end of the world, and that's not what's going to show up on your DA ultimately.
Right, and you do have the opportunity when you go back in and have an offer and things like that, you can tweak all of those numbers. Ideally I'd put 10% in there because that's what I'd really like to get. I'm not sure I'd get it, but you can always dream. So it doesn't really matter. So now that I have an opportunity, it shows up here now, it says opportunity. There's one opportunity in here. So if, for example, I had this buyer, we made an offer on a property, it didn't work out, I could come back in here and create a new opportunity from the same buyer, and it would have the same information that would transfer through, okay? Because I know there's a couple questions too. Well, what do you do if the first contract falls apart, right? So we've got this file. So then you get in here, and obviously it's a hyperlink, so we're going to click on that. And there we go. Get a little nervous. All right, so this is where the fun part comes in. Details, I'm not going to worry about filling any of this stuff out right now. It doesn't matter. It's going to change. The property information is going to change, especially if we have more than one offer, something like that. Buyer profile, I'm not going to worry about that. Documents is really what I'm concerned about right now because I need to generate the offer. So I go to documents. I'm going to pick a checklist type. One thing that you do need to remember is that there are different checklists, and you can pick here too. Condominium, if you have a condominium, please use the condominium checklist. There are a couple of extra required documents on that one that do not show up on the residential, even though a condominium is still a residential property. And Bob, I don't know if you can see the comments in the chat box or anything there. If there are any questions, can you read them? Because I don't have that on my screen right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to read them or address them.
Okay. Just
and for instance, the first one was, what about a townhome? Do you want to answer that?
That would be residential for the most part, because that would have an association, not a condominium association. Does that make sense? And you can usually look, if it says townhouse, then you're going to go residential. But if they say condo in the legal property description, then that's what it would be. All right, and you can always add the documents extra, but just know there are a couple of extra documents on there. All right, so we're going to go with just straight residential. I don't want to get too crazy right now. So that's the checklist I've created. Consultation folder is where you would put your buyer brokerage agreement when you have that signed. That goes in here, and you are more than welcome to submit that for review. We will approve it, and that's fine. It just sits there. The brokerage, this goes back to FREC's requirements that we keep copies of all contracts, which are listings, contracts to purchase, and also buyer brokerage agreements, because those are contracts. We have to keep those for 5 years. So go ahead and put them in there. You can submit them or not. As long as they're in there, that's fine. We've got a record of them. All right. So now we're going to go to the under contract. Well, and eventually, I just want to go over one thing here too. Under contract, when you click on these, you'll see all these documents that are listed here. This is the core checklist for all the documents that are required. You'll see required. Some of them are optional. Obviously, the optional documents you don't have to have there. They are part of the best practices guides though, so we encourage you to use those. Conditionally required is going to be obviously a lead-based paint if the property was built before 1978, or the affiliated business disclosure if you're using Tampa Bay title, even to hold escrow, you have to have that in your file. All right, and obviously we say an MLS pending is required. If it's not in the MLS, then obviously that one is not required, but these are the ones that we really want to have the most of. There certainly will be other documents that you need for your contract, and that's going to be up to you to determine. You can add additional files, and I'll show you how to do that later. All right. Any questions so far on that?
And I would think that it would be rare at this point with clear cooperation that you won't have a pending MLS synopsis. I would assume that there's probably a showing that's happened, which would constitute public marketing. So the majority of the time, it should be an MLS.
It should be in there, or perhaps if you had, what I have too, a lot of questions that I get, Bob, and thanks for mentioning that, is what if the property goes under contract before you get the MLS active put in there and it just goes straight to pending? If you have it and it's gone under contract in 2 days, that's fine for your listing agreement. You put in something like, you can put in a pending in place of the MLS that, but if there's clear cooperation, yes, there is. And if not, then you have a showing agreement or a commission agreement that you would have the seller sign. And those are, again, a little bit unusual, but they do come up on occasion. So the first part of this is to go to start a transaction. When you do this, it's going to ask you where you want to go, because both of these are linked. But I'm going to use DocuSign because that's my preferred vendor for this one. And hopefully it will keep me logged in. It may, let's see. It was hanging me up earlier.
And while you're doing that, since you mentioned linking those accounts before, we're going to share some resources at the end with Scott Leroy and the Chadwick group page and some KW training. So if you have a little steps here that we're glossing over for the sake of time, we will have some resources for that. And again, your agent services coordinator can assist as well.
Awesome. All right, so now we've got details. This is going to be the key stuff you want to fill out in order to have your documents autofill. So you go to details first. There's John Test File. He's on the buy side, and we've got the name is John Test File Buyer. And then I'm going to go over here to edit. So here's the buyer. This is the name of the file. Some of this, again, is all trying to garner as much information as possible. Some of it's not necessary. If you put an MLS ID, it's not going to magically link everything up with that with DocuSign, because DocuSign is not connected to the MLS. So room information, I don't need to care about the currency or anything. These are the things that are required to close. So this is the address. So it's going to be 223 Test Street. Woo! Too much coffee. And we're going to be in Largo, Pinellas, Florida. And we can put in here, we're going to have a residential attached. There we go. Don't need to put anything else in there. We do have to have an address. I'm going to close that window. Offer details. Got a contract amount. Some of these things will fill. Entity holding. Oh. The fidelity. And some of this will auto-populate, some of it won't, but that's all right. All right, so so the biggest part about here, you scroll over to this side, you've got down this right side of the column, you've got seller information. So this is John Public. Obviously I'm not gonna have his phone number because this is not my client here. So I'm not gonna have any of this information, but I'd want his name to populate. All right, so there's that. And then, whoops, close. Then we got seller 2 and his wife, Louise Public. Again, don't have any of her information there either. That's all right. Listing agent, that would be Bob Carty, because he decided to get into real estate. Yes, there you go. His cell phone, 727-123-4567. And email bob@carty. Whoa. Company. Just put that in there. Address, you can put that all that in there. And so he's the only listing agent. We don't have a second listing agent. Now we're going to have me, or the buyer, sorry, buyer 1, John Test File. There he is. I would have his number and his email. And you could fill out whatever information you want here. His wife is going to be Mary Test File. And she has her address at Mary. Okay, those are the most important parts. Is you want to have the emails address. If nothing else, you have that. So then I've got my information here. There's not a second buyer's agent, and that's it. So we're good. So we're going to save that. Be sure you click save at every opportunity. All right, room has been updated. I'm going to documents. Now we're going to add documents to the room, add them. And we're going to use DocuSign forms because DocuSign has been kind enough to upload some of all of the Florida Realtor documents and a lot of our office specific documents in there that are editable PDFs and fillable PDFs. So you can use them and it works out really well. So you go to DocuSign forms. All right, we're going to select now you click here, it's going to be in the forms library, obviously. Now we go down here to the second, we have 3 different choices of documents. So we've got the FAR forms. This is our Market Center for St. Pete. So Kelly Room's 882. Each office has an office folder with their office specific documents, and then Stellar documents, which would be your owner's waivers. It would be your MLS data entry forms, anything like that would be in there. All right. So we're going to go straight into the contracts. Now, yes, there are an awful lot of them. So get familiar with the documents that you need first. So we're going to do a residential purchase FAR bar 5X. That would be this one. The property, and I can just search through them. It makes them very easy. So we are going to need a lead-based paint. Whoops. And that's going to be this one. If you're not sure which one they are, you can open them up and look at them, or you can download them and then put them in and look at them. So I suggest you at least go in there or go onto one of the websites and figure out exactly what documents you do need prior to. Obviously, this one is for rental housing, which we don't need. And this is a notice to a seller or landlord, which we are not going to need. So process of deduction, we're going to use this one. We're also going to need an appraisal contingency because the market. Now you have 2 different here to choose from. We normally in our offices do not use the CRISP contract. So anything that you see, CRISP is going to not be one we're going to use. We're just going to use the CRs. Okay, so that's an appraisal contingency there. And I'll go through another reason how you can tell the difference on them as well. All right, we do need an appraisal contingency, and let's see, lead-based paint, and there's an association. All right, so we'll do this one here, homeowners association community disclosure. Add, and I'm going to add. So see, it still says 4 forms down here. So they still are in there. They just haven't been added. So now I'm going to put them in. Is it all crickets out there, Bob?
Yeah, so far so good. But yeah, I do want to point out how easy it is to just keyword search each one by one, select them, and it'll total them all up and pull them in. So it's pretty
and there they are. There's all 4 of them. Okay. So we'll start just so you can see what they do, what the documents do fill out. You can do a lot of the pre-work, legwork here. Look, there you go. Buyer seller names in there. What it does, this one does not do, and I'm kind of frustrated by this, is it does not put in your tax ID or let you add the legal description prior to. So you want to make sure that you've got that up in a window or have it sitting beside you somewhere that you can pull that information in to make sure it's correct. So it's 1, 2, 4 there, and the legal description is there you go. So you want to make sure you've got all that information in there, and we will send them back for this. All of these that are little gray boxes are opportunities for you to put something in there. All right. So here we go. Any additional things you can add in here, whatever you want. All right. So we had the purchase price at 300. It did pull this in here. You still are going to have to put an address. FREC requires us to fill this information out completely. Buyers need to know where they can find their money. So we need to put that. So
And while you're doing that, I think it's important to let everyone know, if you look in the top left corner, it says form. This is actually the same as like a template that you might use in DocuSign. So as you're filling this out, a lot of this information, when you click save, is actually being added to the details section. So an alternate way to do it, instead of filling the details section and filling the documents, is maybe you wanted to just go ahead and fill out your contract. A lot of that will port back into the details, and then the next one you open will autofill with all of that info. So you've got a few different ways to skin that animal.
Okay, perfect. Did not know that. Look at that. Get to learn something new today. All right, they're going to put, so you go through, fill out all your documents this way. All right, so I'm just going to save and close this one. We've kind of gone through. I'm not going to fill out the entire contract for you. You've got radio buttons here. We're going to contingent on financing, doing conventional. Just goes through the same thing here. Repairs, we're going to work on that. The one thing I wanted to show you about the difference between the CRISP addenda and the regular FAR addenda, when you get down here to the part where it shows additional, all these, see where it says A, B, C, D, E, F, these are the titles of the documents. They are different on the CRISP contract. So if you pull up a J for a homeowners association, J on this contract is not homeowners association. So you know you have the wrong form. So you want to be sure that you're checking off. Also, you want to check off any boxes of any addenda that you want included in the contract. This continues to be an issue. And suppose you had an appraisal contingency that you didn't check off, and then you had a problem with the appraisal and the seller fought you on it and you wound up in court, the appraisal contingency would not be showing as part of the contract unless this is checked. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're putting everything in there that you need. So we had an HOA, we had an appraisal, and we had a lead-based paint. And again, they are different. You will see some of these reserved. That's something else on a different contract. So they've left that space there. Okay, so just make sure you're using the correct addenda for the contract that you're using. So we've got 3 attached here. We're all good. Any questions about that?
Someone just asked a question about adding check boxes and your ability to just go ahead and click and check them. And I just clarified on the fillable form, yes, if you're adding them manually to like a standard PDF that you've got, those you kind of have to double click in order to make the selection. But yes, you can select that for your clients before they ratify those documents.
Right. And that brought up something I was just going to say about that too. That's getting into the other part of it. One thing, if you go into DocuSign, here, let me just step aside for a second. If you go into DocuSign, just logging into DocuSign, and you upload PDFs, then you are going to have to manually add all of those text fields, which will be tedious, beyond tedious. So we don't want you to do that. If you come in through command into DocuSign, it will already have those fillable PDFs ready for your use. All right, it's a lot of work. And I did this once. I had a couple of contracts I had to write very quickly. And so I just jumped into DocuSign. And then I realized that they're not talking to each other because I didn't set them up attached to my buyers through command. And so I wound up having to, I did perfectly fine. I generated all the documents in DocuSign, but then when the time came to upload them into command, I had to download them from DocuSign, upload them back into my computer. And of course I had 3 of them at the same time. So it was getting all mixed up, make sure I had them signed or not signed. I was downloading the forms before they were sent. It just got really messy. So this is absolutely the most streamlined way to get into DocuSign and get everything so it stays connected. All right, so that was my big takeaway on that one. There are some other documents too. I need to, I'll show you another one. Let's see. All right, so we'll go through this. So we're going to save and close this. All right, so all the other documents will fill out the same way. I'll just open these up and show you. You can do a lot of the stuff on the front end here. There will still be some things that you'll have to tweak when you get back into the other side, and I'll show you how to do that. So appraisal contingency, so we're going to put the date of 3/15/2021 at least. Yeah, sometimes it's not going to let you put, because see it says invalid number. It wants you to have a number there. So we're just going to leave that blank because it says if left blank, then it's the purchase price. That also affords us the opportunity to negotiate without having to redraft this one. All right, so we're just going to save that. Fill out everything you can during this stage. And then we're going to go in. So now we're all good. Suppose we filled everything out, right? Let me just double check this one here. I want to make sure.
And for these, as you're pulling them, everyone, you'll see it doesn't look like there are initials or signature fields assigned, but they are. This is just where we're editing the documents. It'll be in one of the next stages where you'll actually be able to view where the clients have been kind of auto-assigned
Right.
to execute those documents.
All right, so you see these here where there are all these check boxes, and we'll look at that and I'll show you how that works too. All right, so we're all good on that. We've got the address and that. We'll save and close. So now I'm all ready to send this to John and Mary. So what I have to do is I have to create an envelope for that, because I'm going to put all the documents in an envelope and send them to them. So now I'm going to create a new envelope. And I'm going to rename this because this is the envelope name. Only I see this part, so I want to make sure that I keep this, clean, but what it is, test file offer. And then I'm going to add the documents from the room to that. So I need to add the HOA, I need to add the appraisal, lead-based paint, and the contract. Sometimes you'll have other documents that you don't need to send them for signature, they're just in there. Like a copy of something else you have. All right. So it's kind of a backwards thing here. This was the part that got me hung up for a little bit in the beginning too, is you create the envelope first and address it and put the stamp on it and everything else, and then you go and fill out the documents to put inside the envelope. So it's a little bit backwards. So by the time you get to the end, all you do is click send. So this pre-addressing part is kind of important. So you want to make sure you get this right. So it says you scroll down, add recipients to the envelope, add recipients. This is key. If you have the opportunity to do this, you add pre-tagged roles. And that would be for any document that is coming in that was generated in the DocuSign library that has the automatic fillable fields, because it will automatically know who needs to sign or initial where. Now, I have a situation where I have sellers. I have 3 sellers, and there's only two places that I can put their initials, right? So I will put, in that situation, I would put email address and add a third party to it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go pre-tagged roles. So buyer 1 is going to be John. Buyer 2 is going to be, sorry, I have to keep moving the screen around, Mary. Selling associate, that would be me. So I'm going to put myself in there. Listing associate, that will be Bob. So there's Bob. Add selected. And just for shits and giggles, we're going to put their son on there because he needs to sign on the contract. So I'm going to add an email address. Then it's going to let me add this here. So that's Greg test file. And it says needs to sign. Needs to sign, needs to view, receives a copy, specify recipient. So I'm going to keep needs to sign because he's got to put his initials on something. But that would be how you would add a third person. All right. Any questions on that so far?
Nope, we're looking good.
All right. Please eat. So the email subject, this is the message they're going to see. Hey, folks. Blah. Here's the offer paperwork. All with questions. Thanks, Kat. So everything's done, right? So now I'm going to go to next. And it's much more difficult to add fields and do things in this section than it is in the beginning. So the most you can possibly fill out on the previous screen is the best thing you can do. All right, now see, look, it already has little boxes here, right? If you go up here, these are the people who are involved. You click this down arrow. There's John, there's Mary, there's Bob, me, and look, there's Greg. And everybody has a different color. Those are the fields that are assigned to them. All right, so I need to add one for Greg. So I'm going to add an initial right here. And because I like them the same size, I'm going to put them there. All right. Anybody have any questions on that part of it? So now you can tell who's got what where. Okay. Now see, oh, it doesn't have a name of community. That would be something I would fill out on the previous screen beforehand. Okay, this was just as an example, but just show you this. All right. And I need to add one more signature. So I'll go to signature. I'll put another signature. Whenever you add a signature field like this, that's not a pre-tagged role, you will need to add a date box for that as well. So you click that. All right. If it shows up already, it's going to automatically attach a date field. And if it doesn't, then you're going to have to add one. So just keep an eye on that. All right. Any questions on that part?
I don't see any.
Okay. I'm not sure it's going to let me do this here. If you have something you need to scratch out, this was a cool one. You can put this in here and go, nope, we don't want to worry about the approval. You can do that. You can change the color if you like the color. You want to do a blue, you want to do a red. All right. You can make it thicker. Whoa. Okay. Just showing you all the things that are available here so that you can see. Now then standard fields are back at the top again. All right. Any questions? Now, because we marked that, we're going to put initials on it. So we're going to put initials here. We put Mary, initial it here. And John put his initials on that because we took that out. All right. And then you just scroll down and you go through all the documents. It's going to show your fields again here. Add them or not as you need to. Now, see, this is one thing that's really interesting. So the pre-tagged roles, whoever you designate as seller or as the signer number one, whether that is the buyer or the seller number one, is going to be the default for who completes a document that needs completing. Okay, so obviously seller one here is John, and then you got these little yellow radio bubbles here on the side, the radio buttons. John will sign this, and it will also direct him to complete one of these two. Okay, that is really, 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 really helpful when you have a listing and you have someone who needs to complete the property disclosure. It's not going to allow every person who has a signature authorization to do that. So I'll say, okay, I figure out which one of them. Say the wife knows more about the property. I'll make her seller number one and let her, I'll say, look, I'm going to send you a document. Your husband's only going to have to sign it, but you're going to have to fill it out, and just let them know that. And it will come up when you see the seller document, the property disclosure with a pre-tagged role, it will have all of those for the seller to make decisions. Bob?
I would like to clarify, if you'll click on one of those radio buttons, you should be able to, in the right-hand side in that little menu, if you scroll down, let's just double check and make sure.
Radio
Yeah,
button
if you go to collaboration further down, you can actually allow multiple people to interact with that. So if like for instance, if you checked that, recipients can collaborate.
Oh, check this.
Yeah, and then everyone who can see it can change it, but you'll of course want to make sure that any changes require initials in case someone's already signed.
Got it.
So that is an alternate way to do it. It may be slightly more tedious than just having the one person do it and the other ratify it. But, you know, like, especially if you have those one-offs where you wrote something in and two people need to sign, you want to make sure it's collaborative, because only one person's even going to be able to see that text, because the text you're adding, again, is going to be color-coded just like this and only assigned and thus visible to one party.
Unless you click read only. And then you can add text like that. So we'll talk about that. All right, so just the basic stuff here. But so anyway, so that was the point, was that it shows here that you can sign, that one person will be assigned those. And I've usually just done it and said, because you know one person's going to know more about the house than the other, whether it's the husband or the wife. And I'll say, look, okay, I'm going to set this up, but you need to sign it. Oh, no, let my wife do it. Okay, fine. But one of you has to fill it out. It just seems to me to be a little bit cleaner on that. All right, now on this one here, yeah. I don't know why those came out backwards. This shouldn't have done that. So, all right. Any questions on that so far? Everybody's pretty straightforward.
Dana put a question. PDF forms seem to be more tedious. Are we going to review how to fill PDF forms?
It would be the same thing as adding text boxes. I'm not really going to go over that. You put a text box for everything. I would not even bother with trying. I mean, will be times where you have a couple of PDFs you need to upload, but by far there'll be much fewer spaces that need to be done, that need to be completed or added. You know, normally it's a line through and a text box with a price change and then a couple sets of initials. It's going to be minimal compared to trying to set this whole document up from a PDF, which was the point I was trying to make. That you can get lost in it. And I tried to do that in the beginning, which is part of my aversion to DocuSign in the beginning, because I tried to upload a property disclosure, not understanding the pre-tagged roles. And you've got all these, well, if they check one, then they don't check the others. And it was just, forget it. It was not going to happen. So I threw up my hands, and then somebody showed me that, and the light bulbs went off, and I bleed DocuSign yellow now. All right, so go through. So now you've got all this. We're going to say we've got them all signed, gone through. Just double check, always make sure. And your documents too, it should show up on the side. Doing that yesterday. Let's see, standard fields. How it doing yesterday? Maybe you can tell me about this, Bob. There was yesterday, it was showing the documents on the side on how many of them were. It showed,
Yeah,
had those
I'm trying to think of
the little
where.
markers on the side of who signed them.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm trying to think. Can you scroll up on that side column? Because I know what you're talking about.
There it
There
is.
we go.
There it is.
Okay.
I don't know how they did that, but there it is. Oh, I just clicked on the document here rather than on the
Yeah, I
field.
think they might be like at the bottom of that menu, and they're like little drop downs.
Yeah, I think I clicked on. Let's see. There's the documents there.
There we go. Yeah.
So this one shows. See how this has 3 colors? That means I've got 3 signature fields on it. This one only has 2, right? And then the lead-based paint should have everybody. There's Bob and there's me and there's the 2 buyers. Okay. Any questions on that part of it? What a key thing too that you can do to make sure that you pick your recipient here, and I want to see what it looks like when he looks at it, so I can make sure that I've gotten everything on there. Click recipient preview. This shows you what pops up for him. He goes through, he's got an initial here required. He has to sign it. It already has a timestamp here. He has to initial because remember we scratched out this one part and he had to initial that. Initials, 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 and then he has to fill one of these out. See, they're red and red, they're highlighted there. Already has a timestamp here, there. Okay, any questions on that? All right. And as you go through, this one, because I did not fill this out, this is a required field that John test file will have to put in there. Okay, so he'll have to enter something in there. So you want to be careful if you filled something out and you don't want this buyer or seller to overwrite it, then you need to change it to a read-only field. Like for example, a price or some other term, the commission, you don't want them to be able to change that. So you want to fill that in so it's hard and read-only. They can't adjust that. All right, so it just goes through. We got all those checked off. We're all good. Goes to the end and signature there. And it's got the date stamp and you're all good. All right, so now I'm done with that. Now, if I wanted to look at it for someone else, I could pick another one to see what fields they have assigned to them. Just click X and get out of it. And we're good. And then at that point, when I'm satisfied with everything that's done, click send. And the whole envelope that we created goes out in cyberspace and goes to them and they get an email to sign it. And I've not had any difficulty with anybody being able to sign this on their computer or on their phone, or no Apple issues or anything either. Everybody seems to be able to do it pretty easily. So for that, that's a plus. Now, if I realize I've changed something, I can go back to the documents one day. There we go. And I can just save and close this. And then go back to documents. And I can make changes on some of these and they should transfer, the changes should flow through into, so let's change the closing date. Let's look at that one, or the response date. No, not that one. This one. Yeah. So I'm going to change the response date here to 2/12/2021 so that it's no longer a field that the buyer would need to complete. Save and close. And now I'm going to go back to my envelope and just double check that the file updated, and it should. So go envelopes, draft, and I'm going to look at the contract here. Oh, get out of the way. View. And I want to look at dum da dum. There it is. It's added in there. So I go back once I've done it. And I've done that too. I've forgotten to put something in there and oh shit, and have to go back in and do it. But you can manipulate the documents. You just want to double check and make sure that it sticks when you do that. So now we're all good. I would go next, next, and send because I've already got my messages written out to them. They're all fine and we're good. All right. All right. Anybody questions any more about that? Nope. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to sharing and go to command. Let's see. Come on, go away. All right. Go to the opportunity. I'm going to show you how to import documents. And this is why it's really fun to use DocuSign with this, because it's awesome. Makes it transfer, getting these in really simple. So we're going back over to documents, which is where all your documents are that they need to be uploaded. And again, we're going to contract folder. It has 3 different folders here: consultation, under contract, and close. Understand too, one of the really cool things, you can create a custom folder. So if, for example, you've got something that you know compliance doesn't need to see, you could say, okay, miscellaneous documents, whoops, and create the folder. So I've got a copy of a survey, I've got condo documents, there's the folder right there. This folder, when you open it, you can add everything you want to it. It does not have an opportunity to be submitted to compliance. So anything that goes in there is just for your own storage or need for your client, but it's not something that needs to be reviewed. All right, is that clear? Because I mean, just that's for your own personal storage. And when we're reviewing 40 or 50 files a day, we don't want to have to go through a bunch of files that are not required. We need to try and scale that back and keep everything moving as smoothly as possible. So if you get some things like, hey, you don't need to put this in there, create a miscellaneous file. Wonderful. That's how you do that. All right, and you can have as many as you want within this. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to attach multiple files. Well, I'm going to attach files. You can do this a couple ways. I can do add a file. I can pick DocuSign. And then because it's already linked up with that folder, I can say, oh, here they are. This is the one I want. Assign it. There it is. It says uploaded. I'm good. Go to the next one. Don't have that yet. Don't have an escrow receipt. We've got, don't have that. We got a lead-based paint. We can add that. And that one is in DocuSign. Now, if you had manual, you would just browse your computer files. If you had generated them in some other way or something like that, you can browse your files and pick out, where's a lead-based paint? There's a lead-based paint. I want this one. Open, assign, and there it is. Cool. You can also attach multiple files, which is really helpful if I've got several things to do. So the contract is grayed out because that's already there. Property disclosure, I'm going to browse my files because I have this one on computer. So there's property disclosure, and I'm just putting random stuff in. Browse. This one actually is drag and drop. Let's see. I can go back up here and go, oh yeah, that one's in DocuSign. So I'll go to DocuSign and I'll look for, we'll call it, I don't have it in there. We'll call the disclosure that. Attach. There you go. All right. Now the next thing, once all the documents are in there, then you click submit to Market Center. One thing I want to show too, now because we had an association disclosure that is not in here or that is not showing up on this list, I will go add item. And this would be for any of the addenda that are not shown here. So this would be, okay, HOA addendum. And I don't know why you have to put addendum again, but you do. And we're going to get it from DocuSign. And I want to put this one in that spot. And there it is, additional document uploaded, HOA. Now it is key to remember that this is all wonderful and perfect. However, we as compliance and as the office do not know that you have this beautiful file filled out and all your documents are uploaded until you hit submit. So right now it's just, nobody even knows it's out there. So you have to submit to the Market Center for a review. And the office policy is to submit a signed contract or a listing agreement within 48 hours of execution. The file does not need to be complete. That's the whole point of submitting it within 48 hours, so we can work with you over the next 30 days or so until you get it closed to get everything signed and all signatures and everything uploaded so that we can approve your file. Because you will not get a DA or disbursement authorization until all the files are approved. Okay, we don't expect the files to be perfect. I know there's a lot of people, a lot of S's and C's out there who just get freaked out by that. The file does not need to be complete. We need to know what's happening. And I think Eve talks about this sometimes too. We had an agent in our office who was in a terrible car accident, excuse me, was in the hospital. But fortunately, every file he had been submitted to the office. So we knew what files were in process and were able to pick up those files and continue to work them and get him paid while he was in the hospital. So it's key that we know what's going on. If it's not submitted, we don't know what's happening in your world and we can't help you. So that's the primary reason. All right. Plus, we don't want to create these emergency situations where it's 2 days before closing and you have an oh shit moment where you realize you've submitted nothing and you're missing a bunch of things. And then you're like, well, I got to close in 2 days and I really need the check to pay my mortgage. And now we can't do anything to help you because the file wasn't submitted. And if you had done that, we might have had more opportunity to get everything in a timely fashion. All right, so that's really key. And we work with you. We know the files aren't complete. That's fine. I do encourage you when you submit something to go ahead and review it. Check all the initial spaces because I can't tell you how many times I send stuff back because it's missing an initial. And that's delaying things for you too. You know, it's missing an initial on a lead-based paint, or they didn't check the box. The lead-based paint's the big one. The buyer has to make a selection at that point we showed you. And that's a federally required document, not just SPREX. So that has to be completed. So make sure those things are done fully and completely. You'll save yourself and myself some time there as well. All right. So now we go submit to the market center. Are you sure you want to submit it? Yes. And there you go. And it says submitted. Now, once we go through and review the file, we'll send it back. And this right here will say returned, or it will say approved. Now, if I've returned it and I said, you know, you're missing something, you go in and you add the escrow receipt. I'm gonna find an escrow receipt to put in there. There's one. I'm gonna add an escrow receipt to it. All good. Assign. Shoot, it didn't say it because it didn't say for certain. This would say changed. If I had returned it to you, it would say changed. We do not review changed files. You will need to resubmit it for review. All right. Just to be real clear, because sometimes, you know, well, I changed it. Well, great. Put it back in towards us so that we can look at it. All right. Now, once you get your files approved, you go into offers and commissions. And I'm going to step back and let Bob take over from there. Are you close to being ready on that?
Oh, I am ready. It says host has disabled participant screen sharing.
No. Okay, hold on.
See if you can co-host me maybe.
All right, let me unstop share. All panelists. There we go. All panelists. Okay, you should be all right now.
Yay. Okay, great.
Got it? Okay.
Yep, we're looking good. Okay. One thing, if you don't mind me clarifying just one or two things, Kat, that you went over quickly. When you're pulling those in from DocuSign, what's going to happen in DocuSign is that you'll have, you know, maybe some, like, let's say wet sign documents that are just a regular PDF right here. You'll have your usual forms or templates, whatever you want to call those. Your signed versions are saved as separate flattened documents. So they're no longer editable here. You would actually have to open back up the listing agreement if you needed to, maybe, like, let's say it's a contract and you have a new buyer, you could actually open the same contract, change all of those terms, get it executed, and then you'll have another version of the contract. So when you're adding those to command, you'll notice you'll have one that says the document name dash signed. So make sure you're picking that one and not the flat template, because obviously we'll just have to return that until you pick the right one. So that's kind of important, is just making sure you're selecting those signed documents and knowing what those look like within the context of your room. Now, let me get that screen to go away. Okay. All right. So commissions. So what Kat was saying about a 48-hour submission time, that's because we have to comply with FREC regulation that requires you to notify your broker within 24 hours on a weekday, 48 hours on a weekend of any newly executed agreements. That's listing agreement or purchase agreement. So the way you're notifying us is by not only uploading that here, but submitting that document as well. And once that's done, you know, I understand that there are times where you have a concession or there's variable commission or something like that, perhaps. But in general, you should have an idea of what your commissions are. So shortly after you get that contract executed, you'll want to go ahead and submit your commissions. The reason for that is that allows me to prep a DA in advance. So if we do end up under the wire, hey, I'm closing tomorrow, I need a DA, it just got approved, I can snatch that item up really quickly and sign that. with a little bit greater speed for you. And it informs all of our numbers from the market center production assessment kind of side. So when we're looking at, contract fallout and trying to assess why that maybe has increased or decreased, why listings are down, of course, because there's no inventory. That's another component to that, is seeing the contracts that you're writing, how long they're running for, et cetera. And that's something that KW is also using for the AI or the smart analytics on the back end to, again, educate you through some of the services that they're developing. That'll do things like inform you on like a percentage over the purchase price to offer to increase your likelihood from 80% to 90% of offer acceptance. There's some really crazy things that they're coming up with on the back end, and all of that depends on accurate data here. So if you're submitting your commission 2 days before closing, then that means we're submitting information to KWRI that says you wrote a contract and got it accepted and closed within 2 days instead of the 30 days it may have actually taken you because you didn't submit that in a timely fashion. So be sure you are being timely with this stuff. And let me show you how that works. So I've got my offer. We've already got our documents completed. Now I'm going to navigate to offers and commissions, and we'll click add a new offer. It'll ask you to title it what you will, and we will create that offer. And now it's going to walk through a couple of pages where it wants some information for you. Again, it'll show you the offer name. It wants the offer date. And this is what's going to actually show up on your disbursement authorization. So please do try to have this one accurate. Let's say that
can be edited though too.
Sorry?
You can edit that later too as well.
Yes. And I can always ultimately make changes on the back end to that DA, because that DA is the end all be all. So what I said earlier about not worrying about if the commission's slightly off or if the price is slightly, been negotiated up or down, the DA will be the end all be all. So let's just make sure that's accurate and we'll be all set. I'm going to give this one a 30-day close date just for realism.
Next, one thing too, if I can just pop in real quick, Bob, the initial offers, there is if you have, for example, in a multiple offer situation, you could put in the key details of each of these offers, and Command is supposed to be able to analyze those for your seller and tell your seller which would be the best offer to accept based on closing time, amount down, all those kind of things too. But that's one of the ways that this information is supposed to be used moving forward as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right now you're going to have to provide a lot of that assessment, and we'll see that in the next step. But going forward, that'll be a much more automated process,
right.
Much more artificially intelligent. So next in this is to go to parties. At minimum, it wants the name of both buyer and seller, and your agent, which is Kat today. So at minimum, names, and then on our side, it's going to auto-populate your email. Next, you're going to go to terms. So this is where we have a little bit of fun. You can't just default in a sales price. I'm typing and nothing's happening. So if I know that I've got a $200,000 house and there's 20% down, I actually have to put 40,000 for that 20% down and 160,000, hopefully my math's correct, for your 80% financing. If you've got your escrow, that's something you can drop in as a percentage or just a flat amount. Whoops, a little bit much. We don't really see a lot of option fees, termination options here. So if you have those, feel free to incorporate them. And then any seller contributions to like home warranty contracts or settlement costs. This is another really important one. So again, one of the creative things they're trying to do is say, hey, houses in this area are selling for 105% of list price, but with $5,000 concessions. So again, when more of that back end stuff gets kind of launched for you, the agent consumer, you'll be able to say, oh, well, we're going to have to offer 5% over, but we can now ask for $5,000 back. And it's extremely likely to get accepted versus offering it at what, the difference would be if you offered it at 100 with nothing back, for instance. So fill that stuff out. We appreciate that. Next, you have an analysis page. And this is where right now you, the agent, can say, hey, this is an all cash offer. It's set to close in 15 days. That's a huge pro. Or, provide a con. It's going to be a little bit, longer close date because of XYZ, yeah. Whatever. So this stuff is not required for us at all. If you did want to issue those offer comparison emails, you'll want to include that information here for your client to read through. So I'm going to save my offer now that it's complete. And it'll have it listed here. So if I had some more offers, I could add some more, and then we'll be able to actually issue an offer comparison letter. Right now, it's pretty lean and mean. It's really just a breakdown of the key metrics of the offer with your little synopses at the bottom. But feel free to take a look at that, try it out, maybe on yourself as the consumer to see if you like that and want to use that going forward. I think that's going to be a very handy tool. Now I'm going to accept my offer, and I'm aware we're at time, so we'll move somewhat quickly. So you have to mark the offer accepted in order to be able to create commissions. And you'll see now that I marked it accepted, this changes to change my response. For instance, if I wanted to unaccept that offer. And now we're going to go to manage the commissions. That's where we're going to submit that request for a DA. It's going to open up. It has some of the basic information that we have here for the commission rate, price point, et cetera. And you have two different sections. You have a general section and you have an agent section or a details section. So we're going to edit the general info. My commission is 2.5. And my contract date was today. And then we're good to go. If you are being charged an MLS fee, there is a concession field down here, but you're not going to use that for MLS fees. Being charged $295, $395 by the listing agent in the MLS is not a concession that you're agreeing to. It is simply a modification to your commission by virtue of the listing agreement. So if I had, let's say I'm on the buy side, 2.5% minus 500, I need to actually manually change this to what the total commission amount will be. So yes, hate to break it to you, you have to do a little bit of math to make sure that this is accurate. And I think that that's extremely helpful because it's going to adjust your commission rate. So over time, you'll be able to see, yeah, you know, if I keep getting dinged on these fees or I'm making a lot of concessions, your commission rate is actually being suppressed by virtue of you making said concessions. So protect your money. You know, if you're having some challenge with scripting around your value proposition and those kinds of things, that's what Michael's for. That's what Rachel's for. That's what some of your business coaches in the office are for, or your fellow agents. Definitely work through the scripting. I'm going to save that. Next, I've got my agent payment. So I'm going to edit that. And now I've changed the commission at the top so it doesn't match. And you'll see off to the right, it says there's excess agent commission. I can just click calculate commission and that'll fix that for me. So now it's adjusted to my $4,500, my 2.5% minus 500 in this case. It demonstrates the royalty to be deducted. That's your 6% up to $3,000 to KW, the region and international for their initiatives. And your company commission, your 30% up to $18,000 or $9,000 if you're a team agent. That funds our brokerage operations. That keeps the lights on, keeps me working for you, all that fun stuff. We've got donations for KW Cares, KW Kids Can, bold scholarships, which are not tax deductible, just as a side note. And then it shows your net. Now, if you have, let's say, a $295 or a $395 you're collecting, or a referral to pay out, or a concession to make, et cetera, any of these little one-off modifications to your commissions are going to be completed using the Add Item button. So if I click Add Item, I'll have a drop down, and it's hard to tell. I don't really like this aspect, but it is scrollable. So remember that it's scrollable. You may not notice initially. And so I'm going to add my $395 maybe. Let's say I'm on the list side. I've got $395. It is split with Market Center. So that's something really important to keep in mind. Any, bonuses, referrals, blah, 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 any sort of miscellaneous commission income is precisely that. It's commission income. So it is subject to splits. If you fail to select this, we will change it on the back end. And I want to make sure that you are aware of exactly how much is going to hit your bank account when closing comes. So do be sure to select that just to inform yourself. All of that's covered in your independent contractor agreement as well, if you do have questions. Let's say I've got a referral. You'll see inside referral here. Historically, this is used if you're referring like a portion of the deal to an agent in the office, like maybe you referred something to the commercial agent in the office, but you're not going to use inside referral. You're actually just going to add that other agent. There's a reason for that. We're not going to get into it, but do not use inside referral to pay referrals between associates within your own market center. Let's say we've got an outside referral. You're going to select that and it'll have some information here as far as the percentage and or amount. You can enter it either way. It is going to require the tax ID type and the tax ID. Ultimately, you have to upload a W-9 to one of the folders in Command. I don't know that, Kat, do you have a
Contract.
preference? Okay, there you go, contract. I was gonna say, I don't care as long as I can find it. The reason
Yeah.
is I wanna verify that there's not a typo in here because the feds are watching this stuff when we issue 1099s at the end of the year. So I wanna make sure it's accurate and come behind you and double check. Then we can add that guy. If you have a concession, there is a concession field here, and then you can state whether it is quote on the statement, off the top, etc. Concessions now no longer require approval for producers make of $6 million or more in their anniversary year. So that's a little added convenience for some of you top producers. Those of you beneath that $6 million, we are going to run that by Rachel. 99% of the time it's going to get approved. The reason we're doing that is especially for our newer agents or maybe our less experienced agents, to ensure that you're sticking up for yourself, demonstrating your value proposition and not conceding monies. I can think of an agent who's had a couple of $150,000 deals on the lower end compared to our average price point, and then he's conceding $500 here, $1,000 there. So the poor guy's only really getting 1%, 1.5% on some of these deals, and we want to protect our agent's income. So that's really why the approval process is in place, just to ensure that there's that added support and education. And that gives you a little bit of a defense mechanism where you can say, well, it's not my money, it's the broker's money. I have to ask my broker. That way you can come and get with Rachel and say, hey, Rachel, they want me to concede this, but I don't want to. Can you tell them no? And then we'll go ahead and support you in that way.
Okay,
Once
so
we're all-
Bob, we did have one question.
Yeah.
If someone was doing a variable commission and they were doing both sides, and instead of selling the property for example, 10%, but we're doing it for 9%, how would you change that? And how do you, is there a way to adjust units as well on an individual agent who's double siding?
So right now, and I'll concede, I need to double check because it's been a little while since I've revisited, but right now, my understanding is, unfortunately, you cannot mark transactions as double-sided in Command. If someone has studied up ahead of me in the last week or two ahead of this class and knows otherwise, feel free to prove me wrong. I love it. But my understanding is right now you can't do that. They are working on that. So what you'll do, whether it's you double siding it or the other agent in the office, is go ahead and submit it just for your side. But leave me a love note that says, co-op agent is so-and-so in the office. That way I'll pull, the MLS or the listing agreement. I'll take a look at what the commissions appear to be. We'll enter those and have you both review that. So you get a single DA at the closing table.
Okay, so the question was, how do they make an adjustment from 10% to 9% if one agent is representing both? Is that, you can just do that on the commissions tab here, correct?
Yes. So if you haven't submitted a commissions request for a DA, you can do that preemptively by just going. So I've got this saved here. I can always come back in and change it before I've submitted to the market center. Once you've submitted and a DA has been created, you'll just need to email me that correction. There is now the ability for you to terminate a commission request or terminate a DA, but that's only going to be if you actually have a canceled contract, because each DA represents your contract and your written volume and eventually your closed volume and some of that fun stuff.
And I think actually, because I know you had mentioned there were some updates to the commissions tab, and I believe, because I just generated one the other day, and I'll have to go back in my folder and look for it. But once I submitted it, until it's actually been reviewed, there was an opportunity to change it or request a change on the DA through the commissions tab.
Yes.
So would you prefer doing it that way, or would you rather have an email?
Half dozen, one or the other. I'm really not picky. I want it to be as convenient as it is for you all. I go in every day in the morning and I run all of the checks that we've gotten from the day before. And then I go through and I issue all the DAs for all the approved files. And then I go through and create all of the DAs for these commission requests. And of course, issue the ones for the approved files at that moment. So yeah, just leave a note in here. That'll be part of the process, or send me an email. Especially if we're under the wire, an email is going to be better. Because ideally, I do want to get 100% of our agent count paid at the table. That saves you a lot of time waiting on your funds, because it'll take 24 hours or so at least to get you paid out. It saves me, frankly, a lot of legwork on getting the checks, cutting the checks, tracking all that stuff. It's just a lot easier to have title cut the checks, get everyone paid at the table. And then, Kat, do you want to let them know what we need once they're closed?
Yes. So, well, as you get back, let me stop share and then let me pull the other one back up real quick.
Okay. Can you override me?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm only host. I took it away. Ha!
Okay.
You can't have it. Okay, share screen. All right, so let me just go back here, close this, back to documents folder. So we've gone through, we're assuming now that this has all been approved, we go to the closed folder. There are some things that you do need to upload. Just because you got your check, we're glad you got paid, but there's a couple little more details we need from you. We need a copy of the settlement statement. However, that's provided to you by the title company. The sum total of that is that it has to be signed by all parties. Sometimes you'll get an individual one for the sellers and an individual for the buyers. And sometimes you get one where they sign both. That's fine, whatever. We need to have everybody's signatures. We do need copies of your checks. And the easiest way to do that, because we have to match them up, but the easiest way to do that is to ask your title company to simply email them to you. Email, hey, could you do me a favor? I've got to upload these. Can you email me, scan me copies of my checks and a copy of the settlement statement? Bingo, you're done and you're on your way. And that's easier than trying to do it and scan it yourself. In our office, the walkthrough is only required if you represent the buyer. If the other agent, if I have the listing and the other agent provides a walkthrough, perfect, I'm going to upload it anyway, but they're not required for our listings. MLS sold, we do need that because sometimes there are mistakes where other agents think that because they listed the property, they also sold it. And they don't understand that there's another agent involved. And that is a MLS finable offense if it's not reported correctly. Those are your numbers, folks. And we have had a couple where we've had to have agents go back to them and have them corrected. So you do need a copy of the MLS sold. Obviously, if it's not in the MLS, then you don't need one. And Bob will put a copy of your disbursement authorization here in the folder. That's what can be sent to your title company in order to get the check. But that your check's issued to you at closing, that obviously does not go in here unless the file has your previous contract folder has been approved. You will submit all these documents. If the other agent hasn't changed it to sold, we're going to send it back until we get this, but please make sure that you're submitting this closed folder as well. After that, you can archive it, you can move it into legacy, wherever you want to do with it, but we do need to have these documents to review. Okay. Any questions?
I don't see any questions. I would also add that I appreciate the reminder about getting the MLS updated correctly. That is where we pull awards, because that's the kind of one-stop shop that is God when it comes to market statistics in our area. So when we're posting some great things about our successful agents and teams, that stuff has to be verifiable. And the way that that's verifiable is it's centrally located in MLS. So if your numbers aren't right in MLS and we're doing awards for a sales meeting or annual awards, it's going to compromise your numbers. And then that DA, as long as your contract file is approved 24 to 48 hours in advance of closing, that DA is going to get dropped in the closing folder automatically for you to deliver. The reason I don't deliver it is because every now and then there's a concession that we don't know about, or a modification to the listing amount that's based on the agreement that we don't catch, whatever the case may be. I'm not going to make changes to your income without your approval. So that way you send it to title. If they say, hey, this is off by $395, you can just shoot me an email and say, hey, I forgot to include this in here. Can you add it? And we'll get it updated.
Okay, and we do have another question. I want to show you this too. Brad asked, if we fall out of contract on a listing, what needs to be done from a compliance? Okay, so if you're under contract, and this works on both sides, so I've got the screen back up here. So John test file, we put in that offer, it got rejected. And so now we have to find another property. So what I'm going to do is, there we go, is I'm going to go ahead and upload a copy in the contract folder. See where the little tab, this is beside what folder I'm in. In the contract folder, I'm going to go ahead and add a document, and that would be the release and cancellation form. Okay, so that's where I would put that in there. I would then submit the file to the office, because again, we need to keep copies. So we need to make sure that the cancellation is signed completely and executed properly. We will approve the file. Now, John and his wife have found another property. How do I go about adding another contract folder? Do I have to start a whole new opportunity or what? You don't. It's really cool. Look at this. Under contract, right here in the center, there's a little down arrow. Add a version of the contract. So the first one is canceled. Second one, we're going to change it. Contract, whoops. I'm going to change it to contract number 2, just so it makes it easy for me. Create new version. Boom. What that does is it gets a whole new checklist here where all new documents can be uploaded. All right. You can go back and you can toggle between the two. And it does show up on our compliance side that there are different versions. So we will go through, and they all need to be, any cancellations or withdrawals or something need to be submitted to the office as well, so that again, we know what's going on with the file. All right, so I'm going to stop and share there. If that was clear, let's see. Let's see, what do I see? Your personal
So-
property? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Yvette had a question about what the deal is with personal properties. It's the same. You have to meet all of the same compliance standards. And in fact, if you look at it's either, I want to say it's addendum A that goes over your commission splits and talks about personal transactions. At the bottom, it discloses that for you to be covered by E&O, you have to use a standardized contract, one of the FAR versions. You have to complete a seller's property disclosure and get a final walkthrough. So even if you're on the sell side, those things are going to apply if you want to be protected by our E&O coverage.
Right. All right. Any other questions? And this is designed to be a workshop, so we're here for questions. And I know I had originally asked for an hour and a half, but if, so if you need to go, that's fine. But if you want to stick around, I've got a few more minutes and I'm happy to answer any questions or anything like that, because I know this is a little tough sometimes and can be difficult. Anybody have anything else out there?
Oh,
Any of this helpful? Yeah.
So let's see, I'll answer Yvette's question, but I had a couple resources to share. So what about commission on personal property? Yvette, per that addendum, we will waive the company dollar on any commissions you're collecting on personal property sales, purchases, et cetera. We cannot waive the royalty. That is not ours to waive. If you wish to waive the commission or credit it entirely, that's something that we can do. Typically, title will want a broker authorization for that. And again, it's 2 per anniversary year. But really quickly, let me see if I can I share my screen again, Ms. Bostian?
Okay, fine. Yeah, I'll let you. No, there you go. Oh, there you go.
Okay, thanks. All right, really quickly, in the signature of each of the MCA and I think the other leadership team members as well, we have a link or an attachment to this FAQ, which has all of this fun, detailed information about the office as far as tax ID numbers, NAID numbers, links to W-9 copies when you need to distribute those so you don't have to email us anymore, links to logos, etc. And then it has a list of our, let's see, go-to list. So this has a little breakdown of duties and responsibilities for each of the team members. We have our preferred vendors list, which this is still being updated with the launch of our consolidated Pinellas group vendor program for 2021. And most importantly, within the context of our conversation today, we have links to all of the different training options you have, either with our Chadwick Group YouTube channel, which also has, the agent spotlights and other classes that Michael and Rachel and Kristen and everyone have led. We've got the Take Command series that Drew Carlisle and Renee Schoenberg were kind enough to do for us this past year. I've got a quick link to how to do commissions in command with Scott Leroy. There is in the command marketplace, this fun little house here leads to the marketplace where there are app integrations. And within that, there is one that just launched that is free called Command Your Transaction that actually is hand-on with some KW educators. I don't know how long that's going to be free for. So if you want to hop into another class real quick with some KW experts, that's a great one. And then we have links to some DocuSign training videos within Scott Leroy. Actually, sorry, that's within DocuSign. But then Scott Leroy YouTube is really my personal preference. Scott's been around a long time. He started in the Orlando area, has done tech concierge service, tech training, and 1,001 other things for KW agents for years now. And I much prefer to just go to his YouTube channel, navigate to videos, and I can search for whatever video I'm looking for. In this case, maybe commissions. And you'll see a list of videos. Some of them are just quick. Hey, here's 16 minutes on this versus, okay, here's a full 50-minute webinar. So there really are some great kind of self-learning tools here, or if you get stuck late in the evening or on a weekend and you can't get a hold of a leadership team member, I strongly encourage exploring some of those resources. And again, those are all linked through that Google Sheet that is contained in the footer of all of the MCA and other leadership email addresses.
Oh, any other questions? Let's see. Command. All right, thanks, Brad. Let's see. There was another question right above that. Okay, there goes. Command Your Trans is free in February. It's a week long with part each day. I don't understand that, David. Roman.
Oh, I think he's saying there's a session each day and it runs for a week long. And right now that that's that free one I pointed out. It's free for February.
Okay.
So he's suggesting that there is a deadline for that freebie, which sounds like March.
Cool. All right,
Yeah.
any other questions? Anything else that we can do to help you out? Any tweaks or questions you had individually working on your files that you haven't been able to figure out?
Oh, I see one here from Bart. What is the difference in entering concessions and coaching percentages? So a coaching percentage is a fee that you're paying as a part of running your business. A concession would be, oh, you know, buyer's not budging on XYZ or seller's not budging on XYZ. Both the list agent and the buy agent are each going to kick in $500 in order to get the deal closed. It is a concession to close. And then with your coaching fees, you can add those as a deduction. They're, either 14 or 4% based on your tier within the program of the gross commission income on the transaction. Historically, it appeared, since I just started assisting you all with this in the last couple of months, that they were actually adjusting your splits to account for that 14%. So your commission tab would look correct. Frankly, for a lot of reasons that aren't important for us right now, that's totally the wrong way to do it. So we are adjusting those back. So if you see that it's 70% to you, 30% company dollar, and then the 6% royalty additionally, but you're in the coaching program, expect that additional fee. And again, if you get it submitted early, you'll have plenty of time to review the DA, grill me if you have any questions about where that money's going. But they are totally separate animals. Let's see. So Yvette says if the concession, there you go, thanks. And it's important to know that terminology, it's not a concession, it's your cooperative compensation.
Yeah, compensation. Yeah, I think that's what she meant. She was just typing fast. Yeah, but that would be adjusted, and then you just be sure and send the title company a copy of your BBA showing that the buyer is paying the difference on that. And it should show up on the HUD, your settlement statement. So yeah, and then I think the biggest things that we're coming up against are people not in compliance. The things we are really looking for is to make sure that everything is filled out correctly, that you have initials in all the right places, that the addresses are on there that are supposed to be there, that the addenda are properly checked, and that all the addenda, if they are checked, are even in the contract. 2 points. Escalation is not an addendum to the contract. It goes with it, but it is not an actual factor to the contract because you're ultimately negotiating the sales price. The other thing is you never want to put your seller's property disclosure, check the box that says other and put property disclosure as part of the contract too, because if you wind up in a beef over something, that contract, the lenders and everybody else is entitled to see that because it's part of the contract. So you don't want to put a disclosure in there because it could say things that the lender might not like. And if you're not sure, just reach out to your business coach or to one of the leadership and ask if this is right or not. In compliance, Eve Sawicki and I are both available always for phone calls. We'd rather try and help you learn than to try and get you all upset because we're sending things back because you don't understand why we're sending them back. We try and be as explanatory as possible. There is limited space. And again, like I said, we are usually going through 40 to 50 files a day. And it can get a little tedious. So we would ask that you not submit one document at a time, get one return, submit one return. I mean, if you know you need 3 documents, then wait and put them all in together. But we're here to keep you out of realtor jail. That's the whole goal. And obviously there's a learning curve with both DocuSign and Command, and we understand that. So we're not going to get mad or angry or anything like that. We'd rather help you and have you learn it than go home frustrated. And I will put on my compliance crown when I do compliance. So watch out. No, just kidding.
And you said something about property addresses earlier when we started, that they didn't need to add it immediately, but eventually you do need to put the final property address in that little property address box in the details section of your opportunity, because that's how we're going to find your property when you're asking us questions about it, or Freck's doing an audit and asking us some scary questions about it. We're going to search by property address. So do include that in there, please.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? I think we're definitely close to 1:30. All right. Everybody good?